They operate in the shadows, hidden from public view. Their missions are often classified, their actions denied. The CIA has been involved in some of the most secretive and controversial operations in history. Some that changed the course of nations, others that led to disastrous consequences. From assassinations to regime changes, mind control experiments to covert wars, the agency's hidden hand has shaped the world in ways most people will never know. But what happens when these black operations come to light? Today, we expose some of the CIA's most shocking covert missions, secrets that were never meant to be revealed. Join us for more interesting upcoming documentary series, and don't forget to subscribe channel, like and share the video. The birth of the CIA and its secret agenda. After World War II, the United States found itself in an intense Cold War with the Soviet Union. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, was officially created in 1947 under the National Security Act. Its stated purpose was intelligence gathering, but it quickly became much more than that. It was a tool for secret operations, regime changes, and psychological warfare. Missions conducted under the highest levels of secrecy, often without the knowledge of the American people. From the very beginning, the CIA engaged in covert missions that went far beyond intelligence collection. Some of these operations have been declassified over the years, revealing a pattern of deception, manipulation, and global interference. Operation Paperclip, recruiting Nazi scientists. One of the CIA's earliest covert missions was Operation Paperclip, a secret program aimed at bringing Nazi scientists to the United States after World War II. While officially, America was prosecuting Nazi war criminals, in reality, they were secretly recruiting many of them. Over 1,600 Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians, including some who worked on weapons of mass destruction, were smuggled into the US. These men were instrumental in advancing American aerospace technology, leading to the development of NASA and Cold War military projects. But their dark pasts were hidden. Some had direct ties to horrific war crimes, including human experiments in concentration camps. The justification? The Cold War was beginning, and the US didn't want the Soviets to get these scientists first. MKUltra, the mind control experiments. Perhaps one of the most disturbing CIA programs in history was Project MKUltra, a series of mind control experiments conducted between the 1950s and 1970s. The CIA sought ways to control human behavior, developing techniques for interrogation, brainwashing, and even creating programmed assassins. To achieve this, they secretly experimented on unwitting civilians, prisoners, and military personnel. Subjects were exposed to high doses of LSD, subjected to electroshock therapy, and forced into extreme psychological torture. Some were permanently damaged, others died. The most infamous case linked to MKUltra is that of Frank Olson, a scientist who mysteriously fell to his death from a New York hotel window in 1953. Officially, it was ruled a suicide, but decades later, evidence suggested he had been murdered to keep the program secret. When details of MKUltra were exposed in the 1970s, the CIA claimed they had destroyed most of the records. But the surviving documents were enough to reveal a horrifying truth. The US government had been conducting human experiments, violating every ethical boundary. Operation Ajax, overthrowing Iran's government. In 1953, the CIA carried out one of its first major foreign coups, Operation Ajax, a covert mission to overthrow Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry, taking control away from British and American companies. In response, the CIA and British intelligence's IM launched a plan to remove him. They bribed officials, spread propaganda, and organized protests to destabilize his government. The result? Mossadegh was overthrown, and the Shah of Iran was installed as an authoritarian ruler, loyal to the West. This move ensured American access to Iranian oil, but also sowed deep resentment in the region. Decades later, this interference contributed to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when the Shah was overthrown and Iran became an anti-Western Islamic republic. Operation Northwoods, the false flag plan. One of the most shocking CIA proposals that never materialized was Operation Northwoods, a plan in the early 1960s to carry out false flag attacks on American soil as a pretext to invade Cuba. The plan included bombing U.S. cities, hijacking planes, and staging violent incidents that could be blamed on Fidel Castro's government. The goal? To justify a full-scale military invasion of Cuba. Though the plan was approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, President John F. Kennedy ultimately rejected it. If it had been executed, the U.S. government would have essentially attacked its own citizens to manipulate public opinion. Operation Phoenix, the brutal program in Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, the CIA launched Operation Phoenix, a secretive campaign aimed at identifying and eliminating Viet Cong insurgents. The program, however, became infamous for its brutality. CIA-backed forces conducted assassinations, kidnappings, and torture of suspected communists. More than 20,000 people were reportedly killed under the program, many of them civilians accused of supporting the enemy. Declassified documents and eyewitness accounts revealed the horrifying methods used: waterboarding, electric shocks, and extreme physical abuse. Critics argued that the program amounted to war crimes, but the CIA maintained it was a necessary tactic in the fight against communism. The Iran-Contra affair, funding wars with drug money. One of the biggest scandals in CIA history was the Iran-Contra affair, exposed in the 1980s. The agency was illegally selling weapons to Iran, using the proceeds to fund rebel groups in Central America, particularly the Contras in Nicaragua. The Contras were fighting against the leftist Sandinista government, and the CIA saw them as a valuable ally. But there was a major problem. The US Congress had banned any aid to the Contras. To bypass this restriction, the CIA set up secret arms deals with Iran, despite an official US embargo on the country. The situation became even more scandalous when reports surfaced that the CIA was indirectly involved in drug trafficking, allowing cocaine to be smuggled into the US to finance these operations. The exposure of the Iran-Contra affair led to multiple investigations, but few high-ranking officials faced serious consequences. The legacy of CIA Black Ops. These are just a few of the many covert missions the CIA has carried out over the decades. From assassination attempts on Fidel Castro to supporting dictatorships in Latin America, the agency's influence has been vast and controversial. While some argue these operations were necessary for national security, others see them as clear evidence of the US government manipulating global events for its own interests, often with devastating consequences. Even today, the CIA continues to operate in secrecy. With new technologies, cyber warfare, and artificial intelligence at its disposal, the agency's black operations may be even more advanced and harder to trace than ever before. What secrets remain hidden? What operations are happening right now? The truth may not be revealed for decades, but history has already shown that the CIA's reach extends far beyond what most people could ever imagine.